Hobie's Mirage Passport 12 is fish finder ready. We've built in a transducer mount underneath the hull that's got a molded in cavity above it to house the fish finder. It's recommended that if you're carrying out a fish finder installation on your Passport 12, that you purchase a Hobie Fish Finder installation kit, and additionally to that, you're gonna need the Passport 12 Fish Finder Fit Kit. That'll come with a set of rubber grommets and everything you need to mount the transducer and run the cables in and out of the hull. I'm going to be installing a Hook 2 4X with a bullet transducer to this kayak, but I'm also going to address the other style transducer mounting options for the TripleShot and the TotalScan using our SideScan plate for the Passport 12. Got our head unit here, the bullet transducer, and that's all the gear that we're going to need out of the Lowrance box. Hang on to your warranty card that's in here and some of the other mounting components in case you want to install it on a different vessel later in its life. To carry out the install, we're going to be using Hobie's Fish Finder installation kit. This comes with the standard 12-volt sealed lead acid battery. We also have an option available that has a lightweight lithium battery in the same kit. Battery in a battery holder. This is the charger for the battery and some wiring components and the mount for the back of the battery holder. It's required for the fish finder installation on this particular model to install 2 through-hole plugs. One underneath the seat, just in front of the scupper that leads from the transducer cavity, and one right underneath the gear track on the side that you prefer to mount your fish finder on. I'm going to use a 1-inch hole saw to create the opening for this one-way through-hole plug right in front of the transducer cavity here. This flat here is actually sized so you could switch it up and install the 3-way plug here and the 1-way plug up front. But since there's just a single transducer cable running through this location, I'll use the 1-way plug there, which I'm going to create a 1-inch hole for. Use the drill dot to center your hole saw, and with your drill on a high speed setting, go ahead and create that opening. Now that we've got our hole created in front of the transducer cavity for the transducer cable, I want to create the opening for the 3-way plug where the cables are going to exit in front of my seat. I'm choosing to mount this 3-way plug where the wires will exit on the right-hand side or the starboard side of the kayak because I'm right-handed and I prefer to control the settings on my fish finder with my right hand. I also typically prefer to land a fish on the left side, so I'll keep this rail more open. The opening for the 3-way plug in front of the seat will require a 1 3/8 hole saw to create the opening. I'm eventually going to install map pockets here in this molded recess for the map pocket, and I want the plug to sit inside of that, so just make sure that you don't overlap on one of these ridges to the molded in recess for the map pocket. I've already felt inside the hole to make sure I'm not going to interfere with anything over here on the side. So I'm just going to pick a location that's centered a little bit up off the deck of the kayak and start to create the hole. First step in installing the transducer to the plate is to remove the transducer plate from the bottom of the kayak. It's just held in by 2 screws, so go ahead and unthread those. There's heavy-duty plastic inserts that these thread into. Just set those aside and keep track of them. You'll need those to reattach the plate. I've already assembled the transducer mount assembly, how it needs to be oriented so that I have all the pieces together. I'm going to need to remove half of the components and fit them to the transducer just like this. Once you've got the plastic wing nut with the star adapter on it, the 2 C-clips and the stainless steel screw inserted into the transducer mount on the transducer unit itself, put the other star adapter on the other side and face the C-clip inward toward the other C-clip. Thread on your nylock nut, and you're just going to do this by hand, not snug just yet. These are going to slot down the middle of the posts. And let's see. And you want that transducer, once it's installed to the posts, to be suspended just a little bit above the floor of the mounting plate. That'll allow the transducer to be completely surrounded by water and operate at its full performance. Using a 3/8 wrench over the low pro nylock and holding that in place, just fasten the mounting assembly all the way down. And it doesn't have to be super tight, but it needs to be snug so the transducer won't tilt during operation. Part of what comes in your Passport 12 Fish Finder Fit Kit are these 2 extension mounting tabs that adapt right to the vertical posts, just like the transducer mounting hardware does, but you can either orient them to face forward or backward to accommodate different brands of transducers. If you plan to mount a Lowrance unit that has a TotalScan transducer or a Lowrance TripleShot transducer, you'll be required to purchase this aftermarket SideScan mounting plate. For a TotalScan, you'll just need the plate itself, and for a TripleShot, you'll need this plate with the TripleShot adapter plate. So that'll actually mount through 2 of the molded in holes and extend forward. The transamount that comes up through here will mount to this, and you'll be all set with the TripleShot. So there's a separate SKU for the TripleShot kit, which includes the plate and the TripleShot adapter. For the TotalScan, you'll just need the SideScan plate. Now that I've got my skimmer transducer mounted to the vertical posts inside the transducer mounting plate, I'm ready to run the cable through the transducer cavity and up through that scupper. That way I'll have the cable accessible in the cockpit to complete the job. So I'm just going to feed that through, and then I'm going to reach underneath and pull it all the way through. All that cable is going to come all the way through into the cockpit. And we're going to turn the plate back upside down. And I prefer to use a manual screwdriver for this step. I'm just going to thread right into those plastic inserts, and I want to be sure that I don't over thread. You're going to want these screws snug, but not overly tight. Your Fish Finder Fit Kit will come with a series of rubber plugs with different sized openings for various cables. I've found the cable that fits just right. You want it snugly fitting where the opening of this plug can still close all the way. So that's the plug I'm going to use. You'll need to punch out this solid plug from your one-way, and this is going to go around the wire or around the cable and then back up in here where it's going to seat snugly. So the first step, I'm going to run the cable back into the hole. You want to insert this rubber gasket. It's got a little lip on one side of it. You want to insert that over the head of the plug with the lip facing down. So I'm going to run this all the way through, holding onto this gasket, because that needs to come all the way down the length of the cable and rest up against the deck of your kayak. Pull that through and just work this gasket all the way down. Now the lip of that gasket's gonna face up and seat properly against the one-way plug. That grommet's gonna push all the way up there until it sits flush with the domed part of the one-way plug. Insert your gasket over the threads of the plug. And push that plug all the way down against the deck. It's going to be a snug fit. This backing ring is going to slip over the head of the plug with the prongs facing up. Just like you did with the gasket, you're going to work that all the way down the entire length of the cable. That backing ring is going to thread onto the threaded part inside the hole, sandwiching the one-way plug in the gasket and creating a nice watertight seal. So thread that onto the one-way plug, get it nice and tight. Shouldn't require tools or anything. Those prongs are enough to get it hand tight to where you can achieve a nice seal. This particular Hook 2 4X unit has one plug that both the transducer and the power cable are attached to. So I'm gonna actually run that plug through the opening I created for the three-way plug in front of the seat. I'm gonna take out about 1.5 feet of cable and just lay that on the deck and let it rest there. Just like our one-way plug, you've got a gasket that backs the three-way, and then you've also got 3 solid rubber plugs. You've also got 3 solid rubber plugs already installed here. You'll need to find the plug with 2 openings that fits both the power cable and the transducer cable. Take note that the transducer cable is slightly heavier in gauge than the power cable, and that there's one slightly smaller opening for the cables on this plug. So eye it up and find the one with the thicker gauge. That should have the tag for the transducer attached to it. So that's an easy way to tell. And you've gone around both of them. I like to install the plug over the cable and insert that plug into the three-way housing first, and then this gasket's got a little bit of stretch to it, so I'll actually come back with that. And again, you want the lip of that gasket to face up toward the three-way housing. Align it with the screw holes molded into the housing. And we're just gonna kind of let it rest there for a second. The Fish Finder Fit Kit does come equipped with 3 screws that thread into the plastic and hold the three-way to the side of the kayak. I've got the three-way plug centered over the opening that I created for it, and I'm just gonna go straight into the plastic with this screw. And I'm not gonna over tighten, I'm gonna come back and finish tightening these screws down with a manual driver. And our third and final screw to hold the housing on. And finally, I'm going to come finish fastening these screws down, not overly tight, but just tight enough to create a nice seal on that gasket. And I'm doing that with a manual screwdriver. That's pretty critical. Since I've already installed an 8-inch round hatch in the bow recess of my kayak, I'm planning to mount the battery holder to the sail mast receiver. So I'm only going to need about 3 feet of extension cable. I like to take out about an arm's length. That's going to be plenty to reach up here to the battery holder where it's going to be sitting. I'm going to take out about an arm's length of that pigtail wire, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it there. If you have a need for this wire in the future, go ahead and hang on to that. Otherwise, I'm going to strip about 1/4 inch of wire casing off of these positive and negative wires. And that's going to be used to connect to the power cable. Hobie's Fish Finder installation kit comes with these waterproof wire connectors. They're really easy to use, and they're just activated by a push button on top. First, connect the ground wire to the ground wire of the power cable, and then when you connect the red wire from the power cable to the red wire on the pigtail, be sure to install the fuse that's included with your Lowrance in line with that red wire. That'll make sure not to void your warranty. The back of these waterproof wire connectors are actually a little bit opaque, so you can actually see when the strands of wire are up far enough into the body of this connector. Insert the black wire from your pigtail, and then insert the Lowrance wire. And make sure that the strands of wire are far enough in to make contact with the metal that's integrated into this wire connector. Go ahead and push that button. As you clamp down on that orange button on the waterproof wire connector, you'll notice a gel pack will pop to insulate the wire and protect it from corrosion. You're going to repeat the same exact process with the red wire, making sure that you wire the fuse in line with the red. And you've got enough waterproof wire connectors to get the job done. Those are included in the installation kit. Run your power cable and your pigtail with the plug on it up toward the bow, where I'm going to stash the battery. If you've still got the factory installed 8-inch hatch in the center of the cockpit, you'll be able to rest the battery holder in the lip of that hatch right there. Now that we've got our cabling run in and out of the hole, we're ready to tidy that up. So use some of the included zip ties from the Fish Finder installation kit and just gather this transducer cable up. You'll never want to cut any length off the wire because that'll damage the cable. Just leave it all together and make sure you tidy it up nicely so you don't have a lot of excess wire sliding around inside the hole. A zip tie, one on each side of the bundle, and don't over tighten the zip ties. You don't want to damage your transducer cable, just nice and snug. Before resting my battery holder in the lip of this hatch up front, I'm going to use the zip tie included in my Hobie installation kit to go around the sail mast receiver. That way I can keep the wire connections well up off the floor of the kayak. Before the initial use with your 12-volt battery and your fish finder, make sure you top off the charge on the battery. When you plug the battery in, the light's going to turn red, which indicates charging. Once the battery's topped off and full, this red light will turn to green, indicating a full charge has been reached, and the charger will switch to trickle charge mode. You want to remove the battery from the charger as soon as you notice this happening, but leaving it on for a short period of time won't damage the battery. One tip on charging is that as soon as you finish fishing for the day, go ahead and plug that battery in and top it off again. For periods of long-term storage, make sure that you top off the battery charge at least once monthly. To mount the head unit up in front of the seat on the gear track that's installed from the factory on your Passport 12, I'm using a hook 2 mount with a 1-inch arm and socket. I'm also using a quick release 1-inch trackball that I'm going to insert into the track. The nice thing about this trackball is that it's got a locking mechanism on it so it won't unthread. You'll need to loosely assemble the hook 2 mount after unpackaging it. You don't want to thread the screws into the nylock nuts too far because you need a little bit of play in these star pattern ears here so that you can insert it into the hook 2 unit. I like to hold the mount flush with the star pattern on the head unit and tighten that screw all the way down. And then repeat the same process on the other side. And you'll have full adjustability at this ball and joint here. I'm going to install my quick release trackball into the gear track in front of the seat. Go ahead and press these 2 buttons down and tighten the trackball down, and you'll see it won't unthread. Mount the hook 2 onto the ball, and then with the single power cable and transducer cable that the hook 2 4X comes equipped with, you'll just put that plug with this small notch here facing directly up toward the sky. Plug that into the back of the head unit. Go ahead and remove this card off the screen and hang on to that. And go ahead and power up the unit. Just confirming everything's working properly. I'm going to accept this message on the screen and I'll run you through a quick setup. Do I want to run simulation mode? No. And it's as easy as that. Your hook 2 is set up and ready to fish with. We're not in the water now, so the reading looks a little funky. But once you get into open water, that'll start reading normally. Now that you've outfitted your kayak with Fish Finder technology, you'll be able to go out and easily identify bottom structure as well as any sign of life throughout the water column. For other installations on this product and more, check out Hobie's YouTube channel or check out Hobie.com, and we'll see you on the water.